Good evening. Buenas noches. Shalom. I've been jotting down some things about my life, some things I want to share with you tonight. Many of you of a certain age may know me, but there are those who are younger who may not. My name is Shirley Anita Chisholm. I was born November 30th, 1924 in Brooklyn, New York. I was the eldest of 4 daughters, born to Ruby Seal of Barbados and Charles Christopher St. Hill of British Guyana. At the age of 3, my mom and dad sent me and my sister to live in Barbados with my maternal grandmother. We stayed there for 7 years and then we came back to the United States. As I entered into grade school, I realized that I was a little above my peers in terms of my academics. Eventually, I went on to Girls High School on Nostrand Avenue in Brooklyn. After graduating from Girls High, I attended Brooklyn College. I graduated from Brooklyn College in 1946. In 1949, I married my first husband, Conrad Chisholm. He was from Jamaica, West Indies. He was a private investigator. In 1952, I graduated from Teachers College in Columbia University with a master's degree in elementary education. And I worked as a school teacher for some years before I got into politics. In addition to working as a school teacher, I was a director of a daycare center. And there is a daycare center named after me in Brooklyn. In 1964, when my state assemblyman, Thomas R. Jones, was offered a civil courts judgeship, I put in my bid for his assembly seat, and I was elected. I made a reputation for myself in Albany. And so in 1968, when I ventured into getting elected to Congress, when I went to the various neighborhoods and handed out leaflets and flyers with my name on them, people began to notice me and say, Shirley can do this. She deserves a chance. And so in 1968, I was elected, first black woman to be elected to Congress. I served the 12th Congressional District, which included the neighborhoods of Bedford-Stuyvesant and slices of Crown Heights, Bushwick, and Williamsburg around the edges. Bed-Stuy was predominantly black. There were Puerto Ricans, as they called them then. Now we say Latinx in Williamsburg. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Yo te quiero. Italians were in Bushwick, and Crown Heights was mostly Jewish. My tenure as a congresswoman, well, actually, I prefer to be called a woman congressman, spanned 14 years. From 1969 to 1983, I served 7 two-year terms. At first, I would commute, arriving in Brooklyn on Thursday evenings and taking the last Sunday shuttle back to Washington, D.C. I was basically a loner. You see, the white men who were my counterparts were not interested in bringing a black woman into their circle. And I, as a black woman, was not very interested in being in their circle anyway. And so I spent a lot of time reading. And apart from reading, I also enjoyed playing the piano. Conrad and I had purchased a 9-room attached house on St. John's Place. And in one corner, we had a grand piano. I also like to dance and have won several Latin dance competitions. I also did a little writing. Some of my poems appeared in Albany papers and the Amsterdam News. In addition to that, in 1970, I authored a book, my first book, and it was entitled Unbought and Unbossed. And then in 1973, I wrote my second book, The Good Fight. I was a fighter. My mother said at one point, when I was in the womb, I was fighting. I was kicking as though I needed to get out. I always saw myself as this feisty person, and some folk were afraid of my mouth. When I was in Congress, I fought for the rights of immigrants. I stood up against racism and sexism. I like to say I was unbought and unbossed. I've always said it over and over again that I am the only candidate out here that is espoused by the people and come from the people. But I haven't had labor interests or banking interests or corporate interests or depletion interests, oil depletion interests, or military industrial complex interests. Give me a dime. When I ran for the presidency, I listened to the people in my congressional districts, the people in other congressional districts, people across the country. Problem is, America was not ready for a black woman as president. I had position papers because I listened to the people. And when I listened to George Wallace, and when I listened to Hubert Humphrey, I heard things that I know were in my position papers. I remember telling someone, it was an aide, you can't change the system if you're on the outside looking in. You must register to vote. When I ran for president in 1972, they were not ready for me. And it has taken some 36 years for a black man to be elected to the office of president. And then another 12 years after that for a black woman to be elected to the second highest office of the land. I certainly salute Barack Hussein Obama. And I certainly salute Kamala Harris for filling those offices and doing it well, for being well qualified to do the job. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate you. And if you find yourself in Brooklyn, around Park Place and Kingston Avenue, look up at the street sign that bears my name, Shirley Chisholm Place. God bless you and good night.